Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. Our show today is brought to you by the Women's Clothing and Jewelry Boutique for all your special occasional needs. I'm joined today by Joan and Jane, the therapy twins. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Hello.
Now, I can see that you're identical twins. So which one's Joan and which one's Jane?
Joan. Jane.
Okay.
But you know what? We answered to both.
I would like to be respectful, so I'll probably get it confused later on, but at least our viewers can see which one is which. So you are the therapy twins. So what led you into therapy and what kind of therapies do you do?
Well, Jane went first for everything. So I followed in her footsteps. She became a nurse, then I became a nurse. And then she became an advanced practice nurse or NP. And then I became that. And we both went into psychiatry, although Jane has an extensive medical background. I wanted to skip all that. And mostly we did, it sounds boring, therapy, CBT, but it really is the secret for, this might sound disrespectful, for dummies. It took me 20 years from the time I realized I had a psych diagnosis before I actually got help. And I'm in the profession. Oh, and I've known since a very tender young age about how depressed and anxious I was. And that's probably why I went into it, to try to, figure it out and maybe get some treatment.
Sometimes we acknowledge at a young age that there's something not right with us and we seek treatment. Sometimes it takes us 20 years to say, okay, I'm done being sad and depressed, and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with either.
Absolutely.
It's a personal journey.
Absolutely. Yes. And I didn't actually get help either for quite some time, though. I knew I was really out of it and depressed and anxious, but I didn't get help until after I had my son. I figured, I might be a better parent if I got some help.
Well, I perfectly understand. I didn't get help myself until after I had brain surgery and went through a divorce. So wow. I was 28 years old. So, I knew when I was 10, something wasn't right.
Yeah. Oh.
But I didn't seek help until I got to the point where I was in the grocery store and someone reached over my cart to grab something without saying excuse me or anything. And I just walked out of the store because the alternative was I felt rage that I never felt before.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned rage. Rage was a huge part of my depression. I know that. I didn't know I had. With being twins, you get compared a lot, like under a microscope, right? Compared. And so if one is a little funnier, and that would be Joan over here, so she's labeled funny, so I didn't think I was funny. And because Joan had the outward anger issues, I figured I didn't have it. And what a surprise when I realized that one was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, when you start looking at yourself, what characteristics do you actually have for mental health? Then you go, oh, wow. When you start checking little boxes.
I know.
Really
so
hard.
The reason we actually, I'm sorry.
No,
please. Well, the reason we actually wrote the book was we noticed that in all other aspects of medicine, people have no problem saying, a cardiologist would say, I suffered a heart attack as well. Don't you worry, I'll take good care of you. Every other aspect of medicine, they admit their diagnosis, whereas in psychiatry, it was not only not admitted, it was frowned upon, even within schooling. They mentioned, don't ever bring that up. So right. I thought, wow, that's weird. So we wanted to bring it out so that maybe more people would actually recognize it and say, oh my God, I didn't know I had that. I didn't know I had anxiety or depression or insomnia or a temper. And we wanted to make it ADHD friendly as well, because I didn't want to read a long book. I was done reading. After all my degrees, I was like, I'm not reading anything now. let me see it. Or when the road to getting better seems so difficult. Like I bought countless self-help books. We both have had our therapy as well, and took medication, Western medicine, some Eastern stuff as well later. But when the road to I say recovery, but to getting better, it seems so difficult that we wanted to add in the book a couple of little things that might be helpful and easier to do.
Yeah.
That helped us.
See, it wasn't the modern medicine that are taught or we go to. It's for me, the spiritual medicine that actually helped me get through a lot of my inner turmoil. So,
yes. Oh, the spiritual piece is huge. And in undergraduate, when you're a nurse on a psychiatric unit back in the early 80s, you couldn't even mention spirituality.
Right.
But now that's, thank goodness, it's absolutely changing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found were the people who, not just the religious person, but the person that really worked their own spirituality and had that connection. I found those people got better faster than the people that either had no spirituality or just sort of saying, oh yeah, I'm a real spiritual person, but out of the next breath, I hate that person, and my dad was 100% wrong, and blah, blah, blah.
So you have two books that I'm looking at, Under the Hood, and then Life Wisdom Word Search. Now, here's a funny thing. The word search my grandmother has downstairs on her desk.
Really? Well, we were contributing authors to that book. I think it's a whole 2 pages.
Yeah. Everybody had a chapter, and then whatever words we used in How to Get Better or what we were talking about is actually, a word search. Yeah.
That's funny because that's one of the books we picked up for Grandma after she had a stroke.
Oh, and word searches are my favorite.
Are they?
Yeah.
Anything to help you get better,
It's just funny. I'm looking at the cover. I'm like, wait, I seen that book. That book's sitting on Grandma's desk.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We had really dark hair for both books.
Well, the title of your show was, I couldn't get over it. I kept saying Dove and Dragon, because back when I was at my worst, it was so hard for me to even integrate into society that I had a picture, and not a dragon, but a vicious dog. And that made me think of your dragon, though. And then right before, that was in my apartment. And right before you leave the apartment where the door is, I had a picture of a dove to remind me that I couldn't act the way I was feeling, that in order to be a part of society, I actually had to act more like the dove, but that's not what I felt internally. I felt like a dragon or a vicious dog.
Well, see, dragons can be vicious, but they're also meant to be spiritual guides. So you have 2 spiritual guides, the dove and the dragon, leading to your spiritual awakening. I do a lot of can't talk today. Metaphysiology talks. So, I learn a lot of things, and I actually have a PhD in religion science and metaphysiology. So,
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah, it wasn't until lately I actually said, you know what? I have these degrees sitting in a drawer somewhere. I might as well actually use them.
Yes, absolutely. Jane had to pound some spirituality into. I was such an atheist. I really do believe that hindered my treatment. I was just so negative. I used to actually say that I can't join you at church because, I would self-ignite if I walked in. That I feel like that really, Jane saw it. It was hindering my treatment. I wasn't getting better.
But I wasn't getting better either. And it wasn't until I pulled in my spiritual piece that I believed that I did get better.
No,
really.
Wonderful.
And then one of the reasons we really wanted to write the book, share our own illnesses and share how angry and hateful or unforgiving and intolerant
was because a lot of people, when they do get help, they feel so judged, or the fear of being judged. They don't even give you the whole story. Sometimes it takes 5+ years, sometimes 10, before somebody might really come out and say some of that stuff. But anyway, the spiritual piece, it really is helpful, very much helpful. Yeah.
And let's not distinguish religion from spiritual. Those two can actually be separate. They don't have to be the same thing, because sometimes a spiritual awakening is just looking at yourself inside. It doesn't mean a religious undertone to it. That couldn't be a separate part altogether. It just depends on how the individual sees it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that, that I love about some parts of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous is they look at, they've kind of pulled a lot of the commonalities in religions of the world, sort of like compassion and tolerance and looking at yourself and those kinds of things, where those programs can work if the patient or I hate calling the person a patient, if the person decides to really work that program, they could really, really, with leaps and bounds, get better, improving relationships, because we all know how the negative qualities about ourselves can ruin all relationships, including obviously the one with ourselves.
So are you guys planning on writing another book?
Yes, we are. The first book, I know we have the word search too, but the first book we planned on slamming ourselves, like harsh. You know, some of our peers said, I can't believe you said that in the book. Aren't you worried? And I thought, worried about what? And they actually thought you could lose your license for Jane going on my interview for me for nursing school. But that's because I didn't want to be a nurse back then. I just did not. And I figured I'd fail. So being a twin, I thought, let me use the only resource I could think of at the time, which couldn't she just do that for me? I studied myself and took my test. But anyway, what were we saying? Oh, I'm so sorry.
So the first book, we slammed ourselves.
Yeah. The second book, we thought we'd slam harder with the ego, because every time your life isn't going well, it tends to have the I, me, what about me,
Poor me, poor.
I have this or that.
Yes. No one loves me. Well. The world hates me. The universe is against me. Oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I like mommy likes you better than me. Second book, so the second book is telling people on how to get the ego, move that aside, just move it aside, and then live your life. And Joan says it like it's so easy, just move it aside.
Oh, it's
going to be very difficult. But I wanted to share the name of the book.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's hilarious. The ego has landed. That's all. We thought, like who was the Apollo 13 or something?
Or one of those Apollos.
Yeah, they landed. And I thought, okay, let's think of that. And then, so the ego has landed. It's hard. We practice. Oh my God, the fights that could happen. But we're better at it now because we are 60. But even at 55, the neighbors are like, come on, you two, cut it out. Yeah.
You guys do not look that old. Seriously. But then
there's a lot of powder right now. Yeah, powder.
We stay out of the sun.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Well, I try to stay out of the sun as much as possible. So I try to stay in my office, in my house, and just do my work. But, you know, it's not always possible.
No, it isn't. We have another sister.
Huh?
We have an older sister.
Oh, okay.
She's more like a commander. And she actually turned us on to being positive, because we didn't realize how negative we were until our sister Lori turned us on to, more positive ways of speaking. That was amazing. She's a hairstylist, a happy job.
That is a happy job. You get to meet a bunch of people, have 10,000 conversations in a year, and some of them come back and pick up the conversation 6 weeks from now.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like deep relationships.
Anywho, and our mother was an identical twin.
That is awesome. Here, my father is an identical twin. My biological father. So It's weird. It's like, how am I not a twin? But then again, I have twins that were siblings. So it happens. I'm like,
too.
mhm, there's twins everywhere.
Yeah,
So we have the eagle is
there
landed.
really are.
Mhm. And you said,
Yes.
were you into the CBD? I know you mentioned something, but my audio, I think, cut out.
Oh, we're very into cognitive behavioral therapy, but as having been in the profession, we realize how boring it can be. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some people out there that can make it a little bit more fun, but the majority of worksheets and workshops and stuff, it kind of makes it very difficult. So we try to make it funny and fun so that, you can laugh at yourself, and then you can start recognizing things, and then, how you can change it up. So one of the most important things about cognitive behavioral therapy is to recognize all the negative that you're thinking or saying, which is super difficult. But once you recognize that, what's often harder is giving at least as much airtime to some positive stuff. Once we have that green light to vent about, how terrible my childhood was, and like I said, mommy this, and my cousin Lynn liked Joan better than me. Oh my gosh. My girlfriend once said to me, have you ever considered being grateful for what you have instead of complaining about what you don't have?
Mhm.
I mean, it took me a while before I could have a friend who could say such a thing to me without, throwing her off the balcony, which is what I wanted to do. We were out smoking cigarettes back in the day. And I took that to heart, and I really started trying to think, am I that ungrateful? And I was. I really was. So I was spending way over 90% of my waking hours in negative town. I really was.
Been there.
Yeah. Huh?
I mean, how many of us can honestly say we've been 90% of our day was in negative town? Are we living there, or are we just visiting?
Right.
Living.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think it's Carolyn Miss, but don't quote me, who had these lovely cards. In fact, they're probably here somewhere behind us. One of the healing cards was, I believe it was about a sailboat, and how therapy can be like a sailboat where, you're going to vent about it on and on and on. The boat goes this way and that way. But at some point, you have to dock that boat, get off, and start living life. And part of cognitive behavioral therapy is that part of being in the moment and understanding, like, oh, I just thought that terrible thought, rather than, zoning out in that negativeness and never getting out of it. For some people, I think that's scary.
It can be extremely, extremely scary. I mean, just to look at yourself, because the first thing when you're in a doctor's office, if you're going with a spouse, you're going to blame the spouse for all your negative stuff. They're doing A, B, C, D, E, and E. Instead of saying, wait, I'm doing...
Otherwise, my life would be perfect. Right.
And you don't always... The doctor's saying you need to catch that thought before you manifest it completely. Take it, acknowledge it, and then do away with it. Let it go. Not, oh, here's a thought. Let's go negative, negative, negative.
I know. I was so negative that I was married at the time, and my husband at the time and Jane said that they would rather be physically assaulted than to hear my words. And I didn't understand, because I thought she had a baseball bat anyway, because her son was playing baseball. And all I thought of was I could pick that baseball bat up right now and just say, really? You guys would rather me beat you with this baseball bat than to hear my words? After that, because I was losing everybody in my life, I realized, well, I could be all by myself. But then suicidal thoughts came, where I know it's so mechanical.
Mhm.
that you really do believe the world just would be better off without you. And that is so scary
Mhm.
that I had access to the thoughts I had. That is when I thought, oh my God, you're a nurse. You have access to these medicines in the hospital.
Mhm.
That's when I really thought I need help. Wow. It was really scary. Yeah. And
I mean, okay, so we get to the point in negative town that we look at the path. Okay, do we want to leave, or
Yeah.
do we actually want to follow this path? And we see so many young people today. I don't know if it's because of COVID. I don't know if it's because of stuff going on before COVID, but you see them taking their lives more and more today.
yeah.
And it's okay, we have to have a way to get these people to get out of negative town and actually look at themselves.
All right. So how did you start first? Because I know I started concretely, but who should go first? Concrete or more abstract?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Concretely, I couldn't seem to get to positive affirmations. And it was an LCSW social worker that said, Joan, she went like this, but Joan, you realize that positive affirmations are lies at first. That opened my eyes, and I thought, oh, I can lie to myself. I have no problem with that. That's when I didn't want to say, oh, I'm a realist, I'm never going to lie to myself. I didn't want to be a realist. I wanted so that's how I started.
That's wonderful. And one of the ways I started was I would look at the experience, or, the emotion and the experience I was thinking about. And then I would try to change the way I looked at it. So if I thought that I was ugly,
Mhm.
I would try to be more realistic about it and say, you know what, if I blow dry my hair, I put a little lipstick on, a little eyeliner, whatever,
Mhm.
and wear something nice, I would say, you know what, I clean up nicely. And I started trying to believe it that way. But one of my favorite things was, I was so hard on my father, our father. I mean, I wouldn't say a nice word about that man. And God bless his soul, our parents passed away in 2018. I was so honored that I relearned how to love my father before he got dementia. So anyway, but back in the day, we are from the days of spanking was common.
Mhm.
And that was, Joan, decline that. Oopsie. There we are. So one time I'm about 11 years old. I'm trying to pour the milk, and I see my dad watching, and I spilled the entire gallon of milk all over the table. And I know that he's going to chase me. So he starts chasing me around the kitchen table, dining room table. And what I do, and he never really hit us hard. I tell the story sometimes to the young people that spanking is off limits, and they look,
Yeah, they're appalled.
What? And I'm like, no, wait, it gets better. So I said, to avoid him catching me, I start pulling chairs out behind me to block him. And then I run up to our bedroom and I lock the door, and that's the end of that. But what I realized when I looked back upon that, a couple of things. First, he taught me critical thinking, if you ask me. I'm 11 years old, and now I'm actually pulling out chairs to block this person from catching me. I thought those were wonderful critical thinking skills. But the other thing was I tried to understand what he was looking at. And all he saw were dollar bills falling all over the floor when I was spilling the milk.
Mhm.
So I tried to be more kind of looking at him through compassionate eyes.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I grow up and I say spanking is off limits. I don't believe in that. And I never spanked my kid. And then sometimes I say, geez, time out gave him a little more guilt than I wanted him to have. But that being said, I was changing perceptions.
Yes, we do. At the age of 4, my mom had a husband who was very big into spanking that crossed the line into abuse. And my grandfather, for critical thinking, gave me a couple spools of nylon thread. Now, anyone that knows nylon thread knows it's basically invisible. He's like, I can't help you in the situation, but I can give you this. You figure it out. So I booby trapped my room with nylon thread.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was very
That's
funny when
critical.
he walked in the room one night and fell face first and hit his head in the
Wow.
bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm
Now
sorry.
that's
but yeah,
critical thinking,
that
isn't it?
certainly is. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
That was my thinking as a 4-year-old. So
Wow. You grew
Yeah.
up fast. Yes, you did.
yes, I
Wow.
did. But you know what?
Joan
I'm
often
Thankful
What?
for being able to do that at 4, because that led me to where I'm at now. Like, wait, everything that isn't black and white or fits in a box, you have to think outside of the box or get rid of the box.
Mhm. Yes. A couple of things that we used to, I don't think we mentioned this in the book, but when you suffer from something, anything, even a broken arm, it doesn't have to be psych,
Mhm.
that you're able to recognize that hurt in somebody else. And that could be a gift, because it really is there's an Irish proverb, and it's something to do with, in the shelter of others, that's where we shall live. And if you don't have a support system to help you, then a lot of times, and I think maybe that's going on with COVID, when you are truly alone and you really don't, like, we're lucky we live in the same building and we, whatever, we can still be together. Some people are so isolated and so alone that they don't have the shelter of others. And I think that's where they'll go negative town. But the other one that is very important, as Jane brought up, is when you're doing something, say somebody pissed you off and you want to say something back to them, or maybe you want to get back at them for something they did 20 years ago. Check the motivation behind your behavior. If you're just trying to get even or get back at somebody, that's actually a negative impact on you. So that also helped me change. That if all I wanted was revenge, you're dead to me, cut-offs, what was my motivation behind that? And I was just angry for everything. And I realized now that I'm 60, when we were born premature in the 60s, they separated us. They don't do that anymore. They put us in separate incubators because at the time that was the norm. And they realize now that you get this: adults in the same profession, live in the same building, work together. And we were even eating all meals together. And it was like, geez, this is ridiculous. Like, let's have some time by ourselves. But what they realize now is the sicker twin will get better if the other twin is there with human touch. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in psychiatry, she was just saying the other day, there was a psychiatrist that said there's no reason to hug a patient. And we're thinking, back in the 80s, we hugged all the time. Mm-hmm. And there is something to say about human touch. I don't even know if I answered a question or I just going on and on.
Yeah. This is an open forum website or radio show. So it's wonderful. Sometimes it's just talking and sometimes there's questions thrown in there. But this is how the readers get to know you and how our listeners get to find you everywhere. So,
wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So on that note, where can our listeners and our readers find you?
Well, we have a website now. It's therapytwins.com. So we are the Therapy Twins. It's not the Therapy Twins. And you can also find our book on Amazon. And I think we're on Twitter, Instagram, but it's all Therapy Twins. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course.
Well, I know you're on Instagram because we follow each other. And I know you're on LinkedIn because we also follow each other there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. LinkedIn as well. Yeah, we're on all of them. I don't think we're on like Pinterest. We actually are on Pinterest, but it's all vegan recipes. It's all recipes because she likes to follow recipes to cook. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
And then yeah.
I mean, and then you have to have one social media that's for you. I mean, you can link it back to everything, but it has to be you for yourself. So you can let go if it's following recipes or following music or following actors or whatever it is. It's just for you. It's for fun. It's not, wonderful. Oh, I'm endorsing this or I'm not. No, it's for me. It's fun.
Right. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Everyone needs that.
Yes.
Yes. We have to have that fun time. It can't be all work and no play.
And I tell people, if you're bummed, put a comedian on. Within seconds, you're actually laughing. Mm-hmm. And then that changes your mindset as well because you're laughing.
Yeah. Comedians, music.
Yes.
Go for a walk. Actually, exercise helps with endorphins. It helps
I know.
actually change your chemistry in your brain and gets you happy. Isn't that
Yes,
funny?
it does. Because our bodies were not meant to be sitting all day. Yeah, I know.
And a little fresh air.
Mhm.
And if you do take a walk in nature and then you see the squirrel struggling, then you realize, oh my God, I have it so good. Look at me. I have a home. I have heat. I have a stove. I can
Joan,
cook.
that's where you're at now. Back in the day, you did worry about the squirrels, but there was, for us, there was a lot of the negative.
Yeah, it was all me, poor me. It was.
Yeah.
Poor me.
But you're right. Nature can help. You know what I was thinking when she was saying that is nature can help you stay in the moment.
Yes.
Because the squirrel is funny because the squirrel's not going to let you not see the squirrel being super busy.
Right.
The squirrel's gonna look around and try to bury its nuts and go run away and play and flop, all this other stuff. It's in the moment. It's not, what is that silly squirrel trying to do? Well, it looks silly to us, but they are actually working to do something.
To survive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was.
And you
so-
wrote a book as well. We don't know what book you wrote.
Oh, I'm a fantasy
Yes.
author, so I write majority fantasy, and
Uh-huh.
it's for young adults. So, yeah, it's nothing for mental health. It's just to get you guide people, readers, to do something not work. It just put your mind on something. Have fun.
But that brings us back to that point that, we
Yeah.
need that. Like, I think fantasy is fabulous because sometimes people that, let's say they're doing 90% of the negative thinking, something like fantasy is their only way to kind of get out of it,
How to escape.
how to
Yeah.
escape. So that might be a stepping stone to then the more self-awareness stuff. Because it like we've all agreed that it's kind of hard to take a look at ourselves. I get to say Joan's angry, but not me. Oh, no. I was too.
We have to look at ourselves before we can look at others.
Yes. And one of the tips in our
Oops.
book is when you're focused a lot, like one of the things Joan said, Lori's a commander, our sister Lori, a bit of commander, but now I'm going to agree with that. Okay. But what I know I need to do, if I say that about Lori, is I need to look at me and how am I a commander in my life? Because anything I focus on another human is really right inside me.
Right.
That means I'm the commander. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah. However we perceive someone else is how we are. There's something inside of us we're seeing in that person.
Absolutely.
And it may not be something we like to see.
Yeah. Just call me commander. Oh boy. Now I have a new nickname.
Okay.
So it was so great having you ladies on the show today.
Thank you.
And when you get the next book out, please let me know, because really,
Absolutely. After 2 or 3 more fights, we're going to have that book written down.
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And for our readers and our listeners and our viewers, happy reading.